One more vote for a just cause. On Monday, January the 15th, the Pacific island nation of Nauru announced its decision to sever so-called diplomatic relations with the Chinese province of Taiwan and pursue the re-establishment of diplomatic ties with the People's Republic of China. Situated some 4,000 kilometers east of Australia, the island nation of 12,000 inhabitants took this move days after elections were held in Taiwan, where the DPP won the leader's race but lost in the legislative branch. China has expressed appreciation and welcome for Nauru's decision, but the United States called it disappointing, drawing a second round of war of words between the two sides. What prompted Nauru's decision to switch at this particular juncture? As disappointed as the US is, can it change the future where global opinion trends and where the arc of history bends? To borrow the words from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I'm particularly pleased today to be joined from Wellington, New Zealand by Setope So'oa'emalelagi, a Samoan lecturer in Samoan language and culture at Beijing Foreign Studies University. He's an expert and columnist on China-South Pacific relations. From Apia, Samoa, by Dr. Keshmeer Makun from the School of Economics at the University of the South Pacific, and from Shanghai by Professor Chen, Executive Director of Asia Pacific Studies Center at East China Normal University. It's great, as I said, to have a South Pacific Islanders' perspective on this matter. So the warmest welcome to the three gentlemen. First of all, on Facebook, the official statement of Nauru goes like this. The government of the Republic of Nauru today announces that in the best interests of the Republic and the people of Nauru, we will be moving to the One China principle that is in line with UN Resolution 2758, which recognizes the People's Republic of China, or PRC, as the sole legal government representing the whole of China and seeking resumption of full diplomatic relations with the PRC. Now, the decision, as I said, came just days after a new Taiwan leader was elected. And let me go to Setope So'oa'emalelagi first. Do you think countries are literally voting with their feet for the One China principle that China touts?
I don't think Pacific nations, and I do represent the Pacific in my views. I think the Nauru case is very enlightening for the people of the Pacific, because I have to give you a little bit of historical context as to Nauru first. I think as of yesterday, when Nauru signed the agreement with China, One China policy, and also signatory to the Belt and Road Initiative, Nauru is one of 15 Pacific island nations. One of 15. Mm-hmm. And of the 15 island nations, 11 have signed with China to recognize the One China policy. Now, it's not rocket science that the people in the Pacific have their own, every nation has their own view and has their own understanding of China. And so over the years, since 1922, the first leader of Nauru, Hammer de Joburg, the father of Nauru, had this vision that they must expand internationally. So who is the major partner now in the South Pacific? It's China. So 11 of the 15 island nations have signed with China. And so I think it's a very good step. It's a major plank in international diplomacy to see island nations say, okay, yeah, it's time. Mm-hmm. Every island nation has their own individual way of looking at China. But when it comes to economics, diplomacy, international relations, geopolitics, they know that China is a major player and a beneficiary of island culture as well.
Let me go to Dr. Makun there for your perspective. What do you think is the significance behind Nauru's decision, joining the other majority countries in the South Pacific in recognizing Beijing as the sole legal government representing the whole of China? And what do you think of the U.S. response, calling the decision disappointing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I think the move by Nauru to re-establish the diplomatic relations with China is not surprising. In fact, what it demonstrates is that China is becoming a real alternative in the Pacific Island countries. Not only because of the UN resolution, but many Pacific Island countries now begin to realize the growing role of China in the global governance. And as my counterpart from the Samoa has mentioned, as a sovereign nations, Pacific Island countries have, sovereign right to choose their diplomatic relations and choose their development partners. But more so, it is important that now Pacific Island countries are actually realizing the development deficit that has been there for centuries, for decades. And given the dynamics that are playing out, we can't be left behind while the world is moving towards prosperity. And as a result, I think Pacific Island countries are making the decision in the best interest of their people and best interest of their country. Um, Looking at the China specifically, the balanced stand that China takes in the global governance, the nature of the values, shared perspective that they share with the Pacific, augurs well with the Pacific Island countries. So, and then of course, it produces tangible benefits, which we can talk about later down the line.
Yeah.
But so having said that, this is not a surprising for us at all. In fact, this is some of the things we expect uh, countries in the Pacific to make their own decision. And with respect to the U.S. reaction, I think this is the kind of rhetoric we want to avoid in the Pacific. We don't want this kind of geopolitical competition. What competition that negatively affects. We want to avoid that. Let's talk about competition in development. Let's talk about competition in bringing tangible benefits for the Pacific Islanders. I think that is very important. And Pacific leaders, given the young population, given the changing structure of world order, we are beginning to realize this.
Let's take a look at the longer trend over the past 8 years. Actually, 10 countries have made this decision, meaning to sever their so-called diplomatic ties with Taiwan since 2016 and restore or establish diplomatic relations with China. Let's take a look at the graphics. For instance, in 2016, it was Sao Tome and Principe, 2017, Panama, 2018, three countries, Dominican Republic, Burkina Faso, and El Salvador, 2019, Solomon Islands and Kiribati, 2021, Nicaragua, 2023, Honduras, and 2024, Nauru. So just to give people an idea of the growing trend, as I said, now 182 countries have done exactly the same. So Professor Chen, let me go to you. What do you think have prompted all of these countries in the past 8 years to take this path and recognize or re-recognize China as the sole legitimate government representing the whole of the country?
Well, I think it is now a prevailing trend. The countries, any country with sanguine and logical, sensible understanding and assessment of the international geostrategic developments, all countries have adopted and will naturally adopt the one China policy. China represents the constructive forces in today's world. It carries out diplomatic relations and cooperation with countries around the world based on the principle of mutual respect, mutual understanding, and mutual benefits. This principle of mutuality is independent of political and economic self-interest, and China has been working with the rest of the world for the international community with a shared future. On the other hand, China is the second largest economy in the world. A healthy, a sound relationship with China is conducive to constructive cooperation with win-win outcomes. That is why I think more countries that are still, haven't, established a diplomatic relationship with China will ultimately come to the right side of history.
Mr. So'oa'emalelagi, let me get your response on the U.S. comments as well, because, as I said, the United States called the decision disappointing. But as I said, 122 countries, including the United States, have diplomatic relations with China. And yet the U.S. seems to think that, the remaining 12 countries shouldn't be doing so. What is the logic? How do you look at it?
Well, I'm a teacher, lecturer at Beijing Foreign Studies University. I teach Samoan language and South Pacific cultures. I also read what is in the Western media in regards to China. It's a load of nonsense, to be quite honest. Anything that they mention about China is always in the negative. It's really up to us, the students, the people, to read between the lines. Now, if the United States is disappointed, they should be happy. They should be clapping their hands with glee that Nauru is a land of 12,000 people. They need immediate relief because there is no arable land in Nauru. Their main resource was phosphate. They only have perhaps another 30 years. Their land has been totally destroyed because of strip mining. This is not mentioned in the Western media. They don't look at the history and the people. And so I think, what my colleagues have just mentioned, the geopolitics, the understanding of this region, I will say, if you read any Western media report, especially on the South Pacific, go and ask the people, what do they think?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, sorry to interrupt, I can tell you that they're very, very happy with the aid. Now, the aid is so complex. China has world technologies, say, for example, in solar power. This is what the island people need. Not a 20-year program down the line.
But immediate help.
Immediate.
Yeah.
And so this is, I don't know, with Beijing,
let me,
example.
time is very limited. Let me go also back to Dr. Makun for his take on the kind of opportunities that have risen, because we have, for instance, among the 10 countries over the past 8 years which have switched to Beijing, 2 are from the South Pacific, Solomon Islands and Kiribati. What kind of concrete benefits do you think have arisen from their choices since they made that choice, together with other regional countries? And keep it short, please.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you. So I think it's very obvious that the benefits that emanates from our diplomatic relation with China is in fact improving lives of the people, and in fact one just have to see for his or herself, and can really see. For example, I come from Fiji, and you look at some of the infrastructure development that has taken place. You look at some of the ports. You look at some of the hospitals. These are the real tangible benefits that people would like to see. And I talk to young people, our next generation, and this is what they need. They need more opportunities, and these are the things that open the opportunity for the Pacific Island countries.
How do you look at some people
democracy,
calling this a kind of checkbook diplomacy? They're saying basically, China is luring these countries with money, with aid. How do you react to that, Dr. Makun? Very briefly.
Absolutely no base for this. Absolutely no base for this. Pacific Island countries need financing. The traditional financing architecture is making hard for the Pacific Island countries to access those finance. And development partners like China, they seem to understand the real requirement of the Pacific Island countries. We are suffering from climate change, for example. Yet, what the traditional development partners are saying is different. It's not even with what they are doing on the ground. So, um, you know, we pretty much, comfortable, pretty much believe that, this kind of
All right.
diplomatic relations with countries
We
like China will help in the long run.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Many thanks, Dr. Keshmeer Makun, Mr. Setope So'oa'emalelagi, and Professor Chen for sharing with us your precious insights. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, China and the US have been having intense discussions on several sectors, but is that momentum sustainable? Stay with us.